Hey guys, this is Miss Mayo, and in this video I'm going to show you how to evaluate your sources. This video is specifically for Google search, but it could really apply to any other source of information. So whenever you're finding information online, you really should be asking yourselves the three questions. Number one, who is behind this information? Number two, what is the evidence? And number three, what do other sources say? And I'm going to show you guys how to do that in just a second. But the first thing that we do is we identify what type of keywords you're going to be using. Now, you might want to open up a Google browser and just type in liver enzymes, since that's the title of our lab. However, that might not necessarily work because it's not relevant to the scientific reaction that's occurring and how research may approach it. So you might start off with something like liver enzymes and then have to type in other things. So specifically for this example, I'm going to be searching enzyme catalase reactions. I found that, through different searches, this was probably the best keyword that I could get. It was getting me the best information. When I typed in things such as liver, catalase, I was getting more of like a lab rather than an article. So I wanted to show you the two articles that I found and ask the questions of evaluating the sources. So the first one that I found was actually from Lumen. So the first question I would ask is, who is behind this information? So essentially, we're going to be looking for an author. From what I could see, there's not necessarily an author in here, right? So if there's no author, the first thing that we should look at is Lumen. When I started searching, Lumen was actually a company that provides educational resources for online students. So it's not necessarily an expert, which is what we're looking for, but rather an education company. So when you're looking at who's behind this information, you want to avoid educational companies, you want to avoid sample labs, which you're going to get a lot of. You want to find something that's for research purposes rather than just for teaching purposes. So anything that looks like a teaching tool would not be a source that you can use. So since the first question I'm asking is who's behind this information, I'm not really getting much there. The second question I'm going to ask is, what is the evidence? So what that looks like is I'm looking for a source, right? So either a bibliography or a list of sources. Now here at the bottom, it's saying show sources. So I'm going to click on this. So I'm looking at the sources to see if they themselves are citing experts. So I'm seeing that this source is citing Wiktionary, Wikipedia, which again, although it is somewhat reliable, it's not an expert source. So right there, just by asking those two questions, I'm determining that this source cannot work. I can't use this article. But the third question would be, what do other sources say? So if I'm looking through various sources, I'm not going to necessarily just pick the first source that I find. So you might find that you're browsing through a few sources in order to make a choice that fits your findings. Can your information that you found in this particular source be confirmed in other articles? Or does the information have claims that are wildly different? If so, that's probably a red flag. So let's look at another sample that I found. Now this is through Infobase, which is one of our databases. This is Science Online, which is actually in your WebJets, directly linked. So I found that a lot of these sources also were found online. So it's not necessarily you have to use a database, but it's something that I recommend that you start with. So as I'm searching through this, the first question I'm asking is, well, who's behind the information, right? So if I scroll through the record information, Encyclopedia of Physical Science, if I actually click on that, it'll tell me that it is encyclopedia and that it's been published since 2009. It's a credible source, and it actually gives me a list of topics that it has. So I know who's behind the information, which is great. I can even search the publishers to see if they're credible. The other thing that I'm looking for is, where is the evidence, right? So if I'm looking at the bottom, I should see some sort of citation. So there's an online record, there's further information, it gives me a citation, which is from a book specifically. So I could even go a step further and Google this to make sure that it's real. So the first two questions are already checked out. So I can use this particular source. And again, the third question would be, what do other sources say? So I need to make sure that not only am I reading this, but I'm also reading other search results for enzyme catalase to see that they're saying the same thing, which I could find here. If you have any questions, please let me know. I definitely encourage using both web and database searches to help, and all of these recommended sources will be listed on the WebJets.